across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Go Europe, we won the Ryder Cup. Excellent. Good evening and welcome to the Political Asylum right here on Talk all the way to 10 o'clock. Stand by for 3 compelling hours of breaking news, challenging views and topical debate. Get on the show, get on the phone and call me on 0344 499 1000, or you can WhatsApp voice note me on the same number. And I promise to play your message out. It is Monday, September the 29th. Here's what's coming up. He's at it again. Our pathetic Prime Minister calling people with whom he disagrees nasty names. Remember last summer when Starmer labelled all migrant crisis protesters far right. Now, if you're worried about the armada of undocumented foreigners crossing the channel illegally and then being allowed to stay at our expense, no questions asked, if you're concerned about the enormous cost of housing asylum seekers, of paying massive amounts of welfare to those we let in legally, Two-Tier Keir effectively says you are a racist. This pompous lawyer and his smug right-on chums sling that term around so much it hardly means anything anymore. Aren't you sick of millionaire champagne socialists on the Islington dinner party circuit looking down on the rest of us, signalling their virtue while trying to cancel legitimate debate by dismissing decent British citizens as racist? 0344499 1000. Is it really racist for Nigel Farage and Reform UK to call for a crackdown on the slapdash system of giving pretty much every migrant indefinite leave to remain in this country as soon as they reach the magic 5-year mark, whether they are working or not, and then bring all their relatives over to join them in Britain's promised land? Is it racist to be concerned about that? 0344499 1000. And as all the automatons at the hilarious Labour conference polish their halos and convince themselves that everyone else is an immoral racist, not at all tough Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood announces a raft of measures to crack down on who's permitted to reside in the UK, measures that are not dissimilar to Farage's proposals. So, if it's reform, migrant crackdowns are racist and immoral. But when it's Labour, migrant crackdowns are saintly and moral. Where do these people get off? Who on earth do they think they're kidding? 0344499 1000. In other news, while Labour sticks to its barefaced lie that there is growing public support for Starmer's hated digital ID cards, I'll focus on the truth. The truth that as the phenomenal Stop Brick Cards petition soars past the 2.5 million mark, what is actually growing is furious public opposition to Two-Tier's Soviet-style Papers, Please dystopia. Why doesn't this government stop pretending that this assault on traditional freedom is even remotely popular? 0344499 1000. This is British freedom. It is at stake here. Don't let these people do this to us. 0344499 1000. Meanwhile, why the hell is the NHS backing first cousin marriages when there is clear evidence that they produce babies with serious birth defects? In fact, the chances of defects are doubled if a baby's parents are first cousins. Shouldn't our health service be advising against the so-called intermarriages favoured by Britain's Muslim community? 0344499 1000. Also tonight, Muslim Reform member Layla Cunningham on what she thinks about a white middle-class British bloke calling her party racist. And the shocking news that the BBC's Children in Need fundraiser has given more than £400,000 to an immigration charity currently dispensing advice to migrants on how they can get round Starmer's one-in, one-out scheme. What's that got to do with children in need? 0344 499 1000. Plus, questions are being asked about why a police force put out a description of only one man after a woman was gang raped in a churchyard. No other suspects described. Just that police are looking for a white man. What about the rest of them? 0344 499 1000. And finally, Kinsey Schofield on Prince Harry's astonishing hissy fit after the Sun revealed that his Tea for Two reunion with his dad at Clarence House was a formal and stiff meeting that took him by surprise. All that and so much more, so don't go anywhere. Stick with me right here, right now on Talk, the home of free speech and common sense. Let's spend Monday night together. And we missed her for most of last week. She was on a mission, but it's great to have her back. So welcome to the show to Talk's fabulous international editor, Isabel Oakeshott. Hi, Isabel.
Hi there, and as you were reading out that list of stories, I'm getting excited about all we've got to chew over, but I'm also just disbelieving. I mean, some of the stories that we're talking about, you know, the first cousin marriage in particular, these are just jaw-dropping decisions, aren't they? Absolutely jaw-dropping.
What the NHS is doing, and it's given this sort of eulogy about how first cousin marriages are very good for community harmonious relations, how it's good for, you know, Muslim communities' economic welfare and so on and so all this social, economic and communal good things, they say, come of first cousin marriages. This is the NHS advice. But here's the fact, and we'll talk about this later. The fact is that a first cousin marriage, intermarriage as they call it, Pakistani Muslims are very keen on this, but Muslims generally support first cousin marriages. It's not illegal in this country, by the way. A lot of people say it should be, but it's not. But here's the statistic, that a child born of an intermarriage, a first cousin marriage, is literally twice as likely to be born with birth defects than a child born of, shall we say, a normal marriage. That's the facts. Twice as likely, and yet the NH says, well, you know, yeah, but, you know, it's very good for the community. The Muslims like it. It's prioritising a kind of wokery over medical safety for children. It's unbelievable. We'll talk about that later. Let's kick off with something that is far more believable, but nevertheless extremely annoying. Keir Starmer, he just cannot learn the lesson, can he? A year or so ago, he was busy calling all people who protested about the migrant crisis in the wake of the Southport killings far right. There may have been some far-right demonstrators, but the police investigation into those riots proved, beyond all doubt, that the vast majority of those rioters were not far-right. Keir Starmer just made that up because it fits in with his political worldview. Now he's off again. Because Nigel Farage and millions of British citizens, Reform supporters as well as other British citizens, are extremely worried about something called indefinite leave to remain. That is this bizarre system whereby if you come to this country, be it legally, illegally, stick around illegally, stick around after your visa ends, whatever, manage to stay here by whatever means for 5 years. That's like the magic marker moment. Oh, you did 5 years. You can stay forever. So basically, if anyone, any migrant, any foreigner, no matter how they got into this country, manages to stick around for 5 years, at that point, almost automatically, Britain gives them indefinite leave to remain. They can stay for the rest of their lives. Now, that is a slapdash system that is almost bizarre. It's bizarre. Nigel Farage says we're going to do something about it. You know, we've got to stop just automatically giving people indefinite leave to remain. And look, we also ought to look at some of the people we've given indefinite leave to remain, you know, who've never worked, brought all their relatives over, are costing us a fortune with welfare. Maybe have a look at with their status. All he's essentially saying is that from now on, you know, after 5 years, 2 years, whatever, you know, by all means, let these people apply for indefinite leave to remain, but let's be a lot more strict about how many people we let to do it. Now, loads of people around the country, millions of people share that concern. You know, we have this Boris wave. Boris let in 3.8 million legal migrants who, over the next couple of years, will qualify for indefinite leave to remain, and that literally could cause a kind of welfare tsunami that could bankrupt this country. Nigel Farage is saying, well, we've got to do something about this. What's Starmer's response to that? He calls Nigel Farage racist, he calls the reform policy racist, and effectively calls millions of reform supporters and other concerned citizens racists. He just cannot get it through his head that this isn't good enough. Just because there are people out there who do not agree with his open borders policies doesn't make them racist. And I think this will backfire on him badly. The mood in the country that this Prime Minister of ours has done it again, and calling us all racist, far-right racists. The mood in this country is very angry.
I genuinely couldn't believe my ears when I heard him saying this. Again, I mean, does this guy not have any awareness whatsoever of the impact that those sorts of words have on his own party's poll rating? I mean, this is very much like Brexit, isn't it? And it's also very much like, you know, what Hillary Clinton famously said about Trump supporters, a basket of deplorables. You know, this sort of language is so demeaning and insulting to millions, genuinely millions of people who have perfectly reasonable, legitimate concerns about the sheer number of people coming into our country. This isn't about nationalities, although as Julia Hartley-Brewer was saying earlier in her show today, you know, it is a fact that certain nationalities are linked to certain types of crime than other nationalities. That is simply a fact, and people can like it or not like it, but it's a fact. But in general, those who are concerned about immigration are not actually obsessing about skin color. What they're obsessing about is, number one, sheer quantity, volume, the actual number of people coming, number one. And number two, are those people net contributors or net liabilities? Are they adding to our economy and to the richness of our national life, or are they taking away from it? And I'm afraid the evidence is that, on balance, of those Boris wave individuals, you know, they are not on average net contributors.
83% of them, Isabel, are not.
Yeah, so pretty overwhelming,
workers.
really.
They're not workers. You know, so 83% of the Boris wave have never contributed anything to this country. Many of them are allegedly studying at universities and whatever, but they've never worked and therefore never contributed. And when they qualify for indefinite leave to remain, not only will that be a bad thing for our welfare system, they'll start bringing all their relatives over as well. So literally people are worried, and for once I say literally correctly, literally people are worried that this could bankrupt the nation.
I mean, Keir Starmer, I'm genuinely mystified as to why it's so difficult for him to understand. I would like to ask him, where is your proof? Where is your evidence that people who are worried about this and angry about it are racist? Show me the evidence, because there is no evidence that they're racist. That is an assumption on the part of the Prime Minister. I'm afraid an awful lot in the Labour Party actually agree with it. And that is in large part driving more support for Nigel Farage. And why they can't see the connection between these two things, I don't know. But if they carry on in this vein, all they're doing is recruiting more reform supporters.
And do you know, you want to know something, right? right. You know, people like you and me, quite a lot of politicians, Nigel Farage is very used to it. People like you and me are used to it. Julia's used to it. Mike Graham, because, you know, we are not exactly famous for our left-wing views. We may just be slightly right of centre in our worldview, our outlook. A lot of people call us racist. You're racist. You're racist. And they bandy that term around so much that it's become almost meaningless. But here's the thing. Clearly, these Labour people, Starmer's crew, Keir's crew up at Liverpool, they're so trapped in their own little bubble, they think, oh, racist. If we call someone racist, that will completely ruin them. People will be against them then. They don't realise that they've undermined the very use of that term racist because they throw it at anyone who doesn't agree with them, and that around the country people will not respond to this. But up at the Labour conference they think we've cracked it. We've cracked it. We're going to call Nigel Farage and Reform racists. That'll ruin them. It will have the opposite effect. Honestly, they are pathetic victims of their own little bubble, aren't they?
It is absolutely pathetic. And how can you continue credibly to hurl those types of insults around at a party that has as its policy chief a Muslim, at a party that I know you're going to be interviewing later, you know, that has many prominent people of different ethnicities, of different religions. I mean, come on, guys, is this really the best that you can throw at Reform? Because if this is as good as it gets, you're out at the next election. It's actually embarrassing. This is juvenile politics. But what worries me is that they actually think this. It's not just that they think it will damage Reform. It's that they genuinely believe it because their little minds are incapable of coming up with anything that's more sophisticated by way of analysis.
That's exactly what it is, Isabel. You can imagine them, you know, war gaming. Right, you know, Nigel Farage Reform, they rise and rise. They're so successful. They're winning all the polls by a country mile. They're making us look bad. How can we beat him? How can we attack him? How can we undermine him? Somebody, I don't know, let's call him a racist. Yeah, it's pathetic. It is so pathetic because when he calls Nigel Farage a racist, he calls millions of Reform supporters racists, and he calls millions of other people who are very concerned about the migrant crisis racists as well. He has this thing about attacking his own electorate, and he can't seem to grow out of it.
It's completely mad, and it will do for them. And, you know, I would say that it was actually effective some years ago. You know, this smear actually cost Reform or Brexit Party candidates seats in other elections. It doesn't work anymore because the evidence to the contrary is so completely overwhelming. There is not actual evidence that any key Reform figures are, quote, racist. And at the same time, there is overwhelming, breathtaking, staggering evidence for the reason for normal people, ordinary people, decent people to be worried about the scale of mass uncontrolled immigration. So this slur doesn't work. In fact, all it does is add to Reform's poll ratings. And I would be not at all surprised if next week's polls show Reform having gone up a little bit more.
And do you know what it really is? We've got to go to break now, Isabel, but these people, the Starmers of this world, these Labour halo polishers, when they go, you're a racist, what they really mean is, I'm not a racist. Aren't I wonderful? It's halo polishing. It's virtue signalling. And as I just said, they've bandied it around for the past few years so much that they've undermined the power of calling someone racist. They've made the insult, the attack, almost meaningless, and that's why this pathetic attempt to undermine Reform, Nigel Farage and their migrant policies just will not work. The racism angle does not operate anymore. Funnily enough, though, when we come back, we're going to talk about Shabana Mahmood, who basically has come up with all these ideas to crack down on the migrant crisis, on the influx of migrants, which are pretty similar to Nigel Farage's ideas. So as I said in my monologue, it's like if Reform UK said we've got these ideas about cracking down on the influx of migrants and what to do about the crisis, that's immoral and racist. If Labour have pretty much the same ideas, that's saintly and moral. Again, it's just pathetic. We'll talk about that after this break.
You are not racist if you are concerned about people breaking into this country illegally, who are raping our women, stealing our jobs and changing our culture, all of which is happening en masse every single
125 in one boat at the weekend.
They have literally invented another type of boats. They're calling it the mega dinghy, and 120 people are coming over. At the lowest estimate, each one of those people costs us £500,000.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. I'm still with Talk's international editor, Isabel Oakeshott. Yeah, Isabel, the Home Secretary, the not at all tough Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood. I wish people would divest themselves. She's hard as nails, she's so tough. Even the Spectator magazine, the Bible of the right, this week had her all done up like a gangster, as if she was tough. She's not tough. You brought us that video of her handing out food parcels to migrants breaking into Greece from the Middle East and Africa. Oh, we've got food for them and all this sort of stuff. That's her 10 years ago. She won't leave the European Convention on Human Rights, so everything else she does is just piddling around the edges. If she's so tough, why are we still putting migrants into 4-star hotels? Why are we still giving them free food, free accommodation, free doctors, free dentists, free lawyers, free everything else? If she's so tough, why are we still doing that? So she's not very tough, but she is now resorting to reality TV style sound bites. She said about the small boats. She said this before her speech today at the Labour conference. Failure on the small boats is not an option. That's what they say on Big Brother. Failure's not an option. Let me tell.
They've already failed.
Yeah. Let me tell you. As long as we continue to give migrants, illegal migrants, free accommodation, free food, free doctors, free dentists, free lawyers, and so many more enticements, failure to stop the boats is not an option. It is a cast iron guaranteed certainty. But here's Shabana pretending to be tough at the hilarious Labour conference in Liverpool today.
When people see small boats arriving on our shores, they see a country that has lost control. When they hear of widespread illegal working, undercutting British workers, they feel the system is rigged. And when they see crime unchecked on unsafe streets, they feel fearful. This was the inheritance that the Conservatives left behind for us. And their current irrelevance is the price that they have paid. So it now falls to us to rise to this challenge. If we do not, our vision of an open, tolerant and generous country will wither. And where we fail, others will succeed.
Yeah, well, Shabana, you will fail because you don't want to leave the ECHR. Leaving the ECHR, Isabel, as I always say, look, it's not the cure-all. By leaving the ECHR, we won't magically instantly solve our migrant crisis, but it is the essential stepping stone, bedrock move that we have to make. We have to start from there, then we can start making our own sovereign decisions without being overruled by a foreign court, which is what's happening at the moment. So she's suggesting today that there should be a good citizen test for all migrants coming in. You know, they must be able to speak English, they must have a completely crime-free record, no criminal record, and so on and so forth. The point is, they come in, they don't have any documents, you know. So have you ever committed any crimes? Do you have a criminal record? Yes, I do. I'm a rapist and I'm a murderer. They're not likely to say that, are they? They're going to continue lying. So that's not going to work. But in this alleged crackdown, all she's doing is echoing the sort of things that Reform UK are saying. In other words, apart from the fact that Reform UK will leave the ECHR, in other words, as I said before the break, when Labour propose a migrant crackdown, it's saintly and moral. When Reform UK propose a migrant crackdown, it is immoral and racist. And by the way, her policies, one in, one out, going so well, aren't they? Just 895 foreigners crossed the Channel illegally on Saturday. One mega, not so small boat, this is a brand new kind of dinghy, had 125 people in it alone, and tragically one dinghy sank and 2 people drowned. That was on Saturday alone. So don't stand there, Shabana, and tell us that you're the one to do anything about the migrant crisis. Since you took over in September, it's hard to believe, but it's got a lot worse. This woman is being vaunted as the one who's going to do it. She's got no idea, has she?
Well, I mean, I might have sat up and listened to that speech from Shabana Mahmood had it been delivered a year and a half ago, for example. You know, had it been delivered before Labour came into office and did absolutely the square root of nothing whilst shouting endlessly about smashing the gangs, I might have had some sort of, I don't know, little sense of anticipation that something might change. But in actual fact, what's happened is under every indicator, the crisis has got worse. And I am so fed up and so bored of hearing left-wingers and Labour Party conference types wanging on about tolerance. I'm not feeling at all tolerant, and neither is most of the country. We're fed up of being tolerant. We're fed up of having our tolerance exploited, abused, totally and utterly misused. This fetishization of tolerance has led us where we are, actually. The whole kind of let's not be judgy about where someone's come from or what horrors they may have committed. Let's give them a cup of tea and wrap them in a warm blanket and put them in a top hotel. No, we are actually not feeling tolerant like that. What we want is a bit of judgment about whether the people coming in are going to be good for our country or not. And I'm afraid the vast majority of those who break the law and come over to our country in small boats are not really setting an example about how they plan to treat our hospitality.
So when she says failure on the small boats is not an option, that's a quote from Arnold Schwarzenegger's films, the Terminator movies. And the Home Secretary, as I say, really annoyingly, The Spectator, as edited by Michael Gove, who really ought to learn the nature of political opposition. No, Michael, we oppose Labour, you know what I mean? He puts her all over the front of her glasses and calls her the Terminator, this tough Home Secretary. The Terminator. Do me a favour. She's not going to terminate anything, is she? As long as she stays in the ECHR, nothing is going to happen.
I mean, warm words or punchy words are all that is. You know, what people care about is actions. I've seen all the gushing reports about her, you know, hard as nails speech and how she's striking all the right tones, a steely determination. None of that means anything to anybody. I don't care how steely she may look, how shiny, how professional, how moral, whatever you might want to say, from the stage of a Labour talking shop. What I want to see is things changing very tangibly, very obviously. Now, I will have respect for Shabana Mahmood if in a couple of months' time she finds that she is basically unable to do anything to stop the boats or anything else that she's set herself the target to do, and she resigns. Then I'll have some respect for her. But I confidently predict that will not happen. And she will just carry on periodically giving us steely words and nothing will change. Even old cautious Kemi Badenoch has finally realised that just maybe it might be an idea for the Tories to embrace a policy of leaving the ECHR. It's taken her about 2 years, but she's finally got there. If we don't leave the ECHR, nothing can be done. Of course, the ECHR is a sort of merry-go-round, all the fun of the fair for human rights lawyers like Keir Starmer. So we will never leave. So she has no plans, as I say. Let me ask the audience this. Look, this is where our tough talking Terminator Home Secretary stands on how she's going to tackle the migrant crisis, how she's going to stop it. She has no plans. She wants to stay in the European Convention of Human Rights, which means we will always be subordinate to a foreign court. So when our sovereign decisions are not to the likings of human rights lawyers, the case is taken to the ECHR, the European Court of Human Rights, and they invariably decide against us, and we have to do what we're told. So she wants to stay in that system. She wants to continue to give illegal migrants free, expensive accommodation in 4-star hotels. She wants to continue to give them free food. She wants to continue to give them free doctors. She wants to continue to give them free dentists. She wants to continue to give them free lawyers. Now, let me ask the audience, given that that's what she wants to do, how do you think she stands a snowball's chance in hell of solving the migrant crisis? So she's saying, I'm tough, I'm prepared to be unpopular, failure is not an option. Failure, as I say, with that set of policies, failure is not an option. Failure is a cast iron guarantee. Let me know what you think, folks. 03444 499 1000. When we come back, Isabel, I'm sure you're a massive fan of the new digital ID cards, because I'll tell you, apparently, according to Labour, there is growing public support for Keir Starmer's Soviet-style brick cards. No, there isn't. No, there isn't. That is such a lie. We'll talk about that next. Stay tuned.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Well, it's time now. I'm still with Talk's international editor, Isabel Oakeshott. Let's talk about ID cards. Isabel, you know, this Labour conference, I was watching it at home today with an increasing sense of real fury and frustration. You know, these people standing there, they're making all these speeches, one after the other. Shabana Mahmood, Bridget Phillipson, David Lammy, worst of all, Rachel from Accounts, delivering these speeches, sort of assuring us that Labour have had a very, very good first year, fixing the foundations. All they seem to talk about, they've been told to go out with this set of buzzwords that they think will win us round to supporting them. One, of course, is reform of racists. The other is breakfast clubs. They all go, we've got free breakfast clubs at school. I don't even know what that is, but they're not free because taxpayers are paying for them. But they're all going out, we've delivered breakfast clubs. Oh, great. That's fantastic. So they're all at breakfast clubs and fixing the foundations. They don't realise that they go, we've been fixing the foundations, delivering breakfast clubs at school. They don't realise that fixing the foundations has become a national laughingstock. Everybody laughs when they say that, but they don't realise that in their cosseted little Westminster world. But their worst gaslighting is their way of justifying what nobody in this country wants, these Soviet-style brick cards, digital ID cards issued by the government. You'll have a state number. And whatever they say, you will need this. They say it's to make sure that migrants don't work illegally. Rubbish. It won't make any difference to that at all. They're supposed to have passports or proof of residency and national insurance numbers right now. Well, those guys who get off a small boat and one day later are working for Deliveroo in Folkestone or wherever, they haven't got a national insurance number, so it won't make any difference to illegal working. Illegal working will continue as it always has done. But their justification for this massively un-British assault on our traditional liberty, you know, a papers, please dystopia. Make no mistake, the police will ask you for this card if they stop you. Their justification for this is there is growing public support for government-issued digital IDs. This petition, which was started last Thursday night when, soon after Keir Starmer announced this massively unpopular initiative, it is deeply, profoundly unpopular. The petition launched then, it's an official government petition, is a phenomenon. It soared past 2.5 million today and rising. There isn't growing public support for this hideous assault on our freedom. There is growing public furious opposition, right?
So, you and I may actually have some disagreement on this. I'm going to be properly consistent on this because I have written an article fairly recently for The Telegraph in which I say that digital ID cards can be a good thing, but here's the most important bit: not under this government. I live in a country which uses ID cards, digital ID cards, and I just don't have a problem with it here where I am. At no point have I found it anything other than actually quite helpful and in many ways very reassuring. And I wrote in my piece that what this means is that someone can come into your home and, you know, fix a dripping tap or carry out some other repair, and you can quite easily leave them in your property and not worry whatsoever that they're going to steal anything, because they all know that if anything disappears, you've got their ID, their employer has their ID, and they will quickly be traced. But that's in this society. That is not in the UK under this totally blundering government and a culture in the UK of jobs worthery. And can you imagine how this would be overreached. You know, can you just imagine the little clipboard people with a little bit of authority just going so over the top? You know, the horrors of COVID taught us that if you give the state, the British state, too much power, they just cannot possibly keep things in proportion. And we already see overreach in so many areas. And I simply don't trust our institutions and the people that work for them to do this properly. And actually, do you know what? I just don't see it happening. You know, I think there is so much opposition to it.
Exactly.
I don't think it's popular. My position is not a fashionable one. I wouldn't have held this position had I not lived in a country which actually uses them properly. And I cannot see it happening. It's just not going to work, is it?
The level of antipathy around the country towards this, as I said earlier, is literally phenomenal. It really is phenomenal. It's
People
something.
hate it.
There's something, it's just something profoundly un-British. We are not a papers, please society, and we never will be. And if Starmer carries forward with this, it will be his poll tax. People will rise up against it. They really, really will.
It basically only works in a society where there is already total control, you know, where there is already real efficiency, where everything is already so well organised. And you know, you can't just sort of slap this on to our totally chaotic society in which there are probably, I don't know how many, perhaps 1 million people who shouldn't be in the UK. How is this going to work? I just don't see it.
It doesn't make any difference. I mean, you know, there's already a system by which people are not supposed to be able to work unless they have the right documentation, as in, you know, proof of residency and also, of course, your national insurance number. So just adding to that list with these digital ID cards, it's rubbish. This is about socialist control. That's what it is. It's about socialist control. That's what Tony Blair's obsessed with it. He's been obsessed with it for years. They want control over us. But, you know, here's the one thing I will say, I'll pay a compliment to this government now, is that, you know, the little people around the country, we're all so stupid, and we can't really understand things like digital ID cards, can we? So our gratitude to Keir Starmer's new sidekick. I don't know what his official title is, that awful little man. What's his name? Darren Jones. Here he is. This is the guy, by the way, who thinks that the vast majority of migrants coming across the Channel are women and children, as opposed to 75% of them being young men of military age. Anyway, here's Darren's Darren Explains. Here we are.
What is a digital ID? My name is Darren Jones. I'm the Chief Secretary to the Prime Minister. Let me explain. A digital ID is an ID on your phone that just proves you are who you are. And when you apply for any new job in the UK already, you have to prove that you have the right to work here. With a digital right to work check, you can do...
Shut up. I mean, talk about infantilising us. I mean, how old are we? 3 years old? What on earth is that about? And by the way, if you must put out some intelligence-insulting video like that, Darren Explains. It's not exactly, you know, particularly rolling off the tongue, is it? It's not. It's not very alliterative, is it? Useless and insulting. What on earth do they think they're doing?
I think it's more like Darren depresses, isn't it?
Darren's diktat.
Is there anything more depressing than that bloke telling us that? I mean, again, who are these people in Downing Street and the Cabinet Office that are letting these bits of communication go out? I don't know why they're being paid. They are kind of like a reverse publicity machine, you know, just kind of making everything worse.
Yeah, you just want to say, don't you, when you, my name's Darren Jones, I'm Chief Secretary to the Prime Minister, you just go, yeah, of course you are.
Yeah,
Darren Explains. Let me explain to you, Darren. Just do one. Don't insult our intelligence with that nonsense, that claptrap.
In the bin.
In the bin. Yes, exactly.
Get in the bin.
Right, let's go to break and let's talk about a very serious story when we come back. The incredible news that the NHS, our health service, is backing first cousin marriages. These are the marriages favoured particularly by the Pakistani Muslim community, but by Muslims around the world, including here. They're not illegal, but I think they should be. They're dangerous. So we'll talk about that next.
we're not accusing individual politicians or even that whole party of being racist, but we're saying that policy, that approach is, as we said, immoral, racist, unworkable. What's important here is people want practical, fair, but firm solutions. And I think British people have a real sense of fairness, and people want to see a policy that works, that's fair, and that takes tough action to make things change. And that's exactly what we're setting out. So we're not pulling our punches. We're saying, look, if you want to come in this country, if you want to have indefinite leave to remain, you have to speak English. You have to have contributed. No criminal record. No claiming benefits. You know, all of that should be the baseline.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. I'm still with Talk's international editor, Isabel Oakeshott. Isabel, I had a text from Patrick in Gedling. He says, Isabel is so professional, composed and patient. She obviously knows Kevin very well. I don't know what that means. I think it means that you handle my madness with great aplomb.
I love your madness. You know, this is what makes me feel less alone in the world. You know, when you know, and some our listeners won't know that sometimes I just feel the need to share something with Kev during the day on WhatsApp or, you know, on email, and it's usually with capital letters going, can you believe this thing?
Yeah,
and, you know, it's all so bonkers, isn't it? Do you remember, I don't know whether they still do it, the Daily Mail used to have this kind of little stamp that they put on stories, which said something like, you know, the world's going mad or something. But the thing is, I think we had to give it up because the whole paper would be covered.
Yeah, exactly right. I always said that. Well, it is the sort of unofficial slogan of this show that I don't use enough, but it's stop the madness. I mean, the madness that we are assailed by every day in every way, you know, it's sometimes funny. It's usually extremely worrying, as in this case. This case, we're going to talk about the NHS incredibly backing first cousin marriages, a system that's very common among the British Pakistani community, common among Muslims around the world. You may remember this. This is the MP for Dewsbury and Batley, Iqbal Mohammed. He spoke in the House of Commons not so long ago in favour of this practice of first cousin marriage, which definitively, scientifically, is far more likely to deliver babies with birth defects than marriages between people who aren't first cousins. So it should be banned, really. But this is Iqbal Mohammed, I think it's about a year ago.
We should try to step into the shoes of those who perhaps are not from the same culture as ours, to better understand why the practice continues to be so widespread. An estimated 35 to 50% of all sub-Saharan African populations either prefer or accept cousin marriages, and it is extremely common in the Middle East and in South Asia. I would therefore urge the House to vote against this motion and to find a more positive approach to addressing the issues that are caused by first cousin marriages.
Oh, well, if it's popular in the Middle East and sub-Saharan Africa, let's get on board. In actual fact, what he was doing there, he was opposing a proposal by the Tories to outlaw first cousin marriages. The statistics are alarming. Up to 20% of the children treated for congenital problems in cities like Sheffield, Glasgow and Birmingham are of Pakistani descent, compared with 4% or lower in the wider population. In fact, the general statistic is this, that a kid being born of first intermarriage, as they call it, first cousin parent marriages, is around the chances of being born with a birth defect, a genetic condition, is around 2 to 3%. If the parents are not first cousins, it's 4 to 6%. So if you have first cousin marriages, you have your kid is twice as likely to suffer from birth defects than any other kid. And yet, the NHS England's Genomics Education Programme says that intermarriage offers benefits which include stronger extended family support systems and economic advantages, and that banning this practice would stigmatise certain communities and cultural traditions. And the authority should instead offer genetic counselling, awareness-raising initiatives and public health campaigns. So they are prioritising a kind of wokery towards our Pakistani Muslim community over the welfare of children, who are being born at quite a rate with birth defects. We should just ban this. We should outlaw this practice. And what on earth is the NHS doing backing it?
Yeah, I mean, this is actually very simple as far as I'm concerned. I really don't give a monkey's what goes on in other countries. What we're talking about here in Parliament and with the NHS is what goes on in our own country. And this type of whatever you call it, inter-family marriage, or whatever it is, has no place whatsoever in the UK. All the evidence shows that, as you've just set out very clearly there, that it very significantly raises the risks of health problems and birth defects. And that isn't a price that anyone should be willing to pay. It's not for the NHS to be talking and lecturing about economic advantages and community cohesion. That isn't their job. Their job is to protect and promote health. And this quite clearly doesn't. And I think it would send a really clear message, actually, out to those so-called communities that the NHS is talking about, that actually, you know what, you're in Britain and this is not how we do things in the UK.
Yeah, and this NHS England's Genomics Education Programme goes on to sort of say, well, yeah, sure, it does increase the risk of birth defects, but, so does, shall we say, parents who are a bit too old, or, because they're, advanced in age. So does smoking. So does alcohol use and some assisted reproductive technologies. Well, what's that got to do with it? What's that got to do with it? What we have here is a definite scientific fact that if first cousins get married, the chances of their kids, their babies, suffering from birth defects, often serious birth defects, are twice the chance of other parents delivering babies with birth defects. Twice. That is serious, and the NHS should be railing against it, not trying desperately to come up with reasons to support it, which are just cultural and woke. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, and I mean, of course, smoking in pregnancy and drinking in pregnancy and all these things, as they say, are very bad and dangerous. But marriage is a legal institution, one which involves the machinery of the state. Whether people smoke or drink too much when they're pregnant is not a legal matter. We don't outlaw those things because it would be impossible to police behind closed doors. But the state can and absolutely does decide whether it can or can't marry people. So in every way, the state has a place in deciding what is and what isn't legitimate. What next? Are they going to say in certain communities maybe it's okay to marry your sibling? I mean, I don't know, but if it's a cousin, why not take it a bit further? I think this is completely unacceptable, and you've just got to look at it from the point of view of the offspring. It isn't good for society, and I don't get this whole thing about economic advantages or whatever. There's no economic advantages in birth defects or being ill.
Absolutely not. Isabel, great to have you back. You'll be on the show throughout the week. We will talk again soon. That is the brilliant Talk International editor, Isabel Oakeshott. When we come back, I'm going to be joined by Layla Cunningham. She is, of course, a rising star of the Reform UK party. She's a Muslim lady. I wonder what she thinks about Keir Starmer calling her party and her boss, Nigel Farage, racist. What does she think about that? That next. Stay tuned.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. This is the second hour of tonight's Political Asylum. Just watching this press conference over in Washington, Netanyahu and Donald Trump indicating that they've agreed on a Gaza peace plan, some kind of ceasefire. You know, to be honest with you, I'll believe it when I see it. We keep seeing this stuff, and then before you know where you are, Israel's bombing Gaza again. So I'll believe it when I see it. And the proposal seems to be that some kind of regulatory body would take control of Gaza, and that would be run by Tony Blair, to which I'm thinking, well, haven't the people of Gaza suffered enough already? But seriously, we'll keep you posted with that. But, you know, when it happens, it'll happen. As opposed to these press conferences, Trump constantly announcing, yeah, we've got peace. No, you haven't. Let's wait until it actually happens. Meanwhile, also, I really want to hear what you think about the NHS backing first cousin marriages, when we know medically, scientifically, as a matter of fact, they produce children, a high percentage of children with birth certificates, twice as many as normal children from normal marriages. Shouldn't we outlaw this? Rather than the NHS backing it, shouldn't this country outlaw this system of marriage that produces children with birth defects, often serious? What are we doing? 03444991000. Now, for the next half an hour or so, I'm going to spend it in the excellent company of Reform UK's Westminster councillor, rising star of Reform, Layla Cunningham. Welcome, Layla.
Hi, Kevin. How are you?
I'm very, very well. And I'm glad I've got you tonight because Isabel Oakeshott and I have just been discussing this. I know that millions of people around the country, not just Reform supporters, but certainly Reform supporters included, are outraged by what Keir Starmer and his Labour acolytes have been saying about Nigel Farage, about Reform, and effectively about everybody in the party, all its supporters. It is this, basically, because Nigel Farage and you and your fellow politicians from Reform UK have a kind of plan to crack down on the migrant crisis, to hopefully solve the migrant crisis, and because you want to address the coming tsunami of the indefinite leave to remain Boris wave catastrophe over the next 2 years, 3.8 million people that he let in legally will qualify for full welfare and benefits pay, and that could literally bankrupt the country. Because Nigel Farage and your party is addressing this, and I know that what you're doing reflects the fears and concerns of millions of people all over the country, but because you're addressing that, Keir Starmer and Labour say you're racists. What do you say to that? Now, it's particularly you, Layla, you're a Muslim lady, right? What do you say to this white, middle-class lawyer bloke, Keir Starmer, calling you, a Muslim lady, a racist?
The thing is, Kevin, when Keir Starmer calls our immigration policy racist, he stopped debating, right? He's just insulting and smearing. And he also knows that millions of ordinary people share our concerns about borders, fairness, integration. And it's really insulting to dismiss those millions of people as racist. All we're asking for is a visa system based on work, language, and criminal record. Is that racist? We don't actually care what race you're from or what country you were born in. We care whether the system works for Britain. And right now, the system is not working for Britain. Taxpayers are paying the price for a system that's just open-ended, frankly unmonitored and unaffordable. It's got nothing to do with race. It's got to do with being a responsible government. That's all.
Absolutely, and the indefinite leave to remain system, as things stand, is basically this. It's an insanity. It's a bizarre madness. It is that if you get to this country by whatever means, it might be you come across the channel illegally in a small boat or in a dinghy. It might be that you come here on some kind of visa and you outstay that visa's duration. However you come here, if you manage to stay here for 5 years, then we turn round as a nation and say, you've made it! You've hit the magic 5-year mark. Now, automatically, you can stay for the rest of your life. And if you're not working or anything like that, start claiming full benefits. And why don't you bring your family over as well, and we'll pay them welfare as well. Nigel Farage is suggesting that perhaps we should look at that madness, that slapdash system, and tighten it up. I don't think, A, that that's racist, or B, that millions of people don't agree with that. You see what I'm saying?
But I don't even understand where race comes into it, to be honest. Why is it racist to say that you can't have a criminal record? Why is it racist to say that you have to speak English? Why is it racist to say that you can support yourself? I don't understand where race comes into it. Perhaps he could explain it to us. I believe his Home Secretary announced something pretty similar to us, but somehow that's not racist. And then I think, I couldn't believe my ears, but I do think Rachel Reeves said that, you know, reform is a threat to the country, or something of the same thing, and they were tearing this country apart. You know what really tears the country apart, Kevin, is mass uncontrolled immigration that puts huge amount of pressures on schools, housing, hospitals, and the refusal of a political class like Labour to listen and actually call those who care and who literally had enough racist. People who work hard, obey the law. At the end of the day, I think people just want a system that puts British citizens first.
Yeah.
And indefinite leave to remain shouldn't be a blank check. It shouldn't mean you get permanent access to everything with no conditions, no duties, and no end dates.
Yeah, well, exactly right. And you're also exactly right, Layla, when you say that while Labour says, oh, well, you know, this Reform's approach to indefinite leave to remain is racist, it's immoral. And then the Home Secretary, the not very tough Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, announces sort of exactly what Reform is saying. She says, well, under my system, no one will be allowed to stay if they can't speak good English. No one will be allowed to stay if they're not working, and so on and so forth. So they are saying she comes up with these systems or these measures that are exactly what Nigel Farage is talking. So it's like if Reform UK propose them, they're racist and immoral. If Labour propose them, they're saintly and moral. What is that all about?
Well, I think you saw it a bit in the US election. You know, when the left can only resort to words like far right, racist, a danger to our country, because they can't debate the actual policies. I mean, the idea that we're going to start ripping people from their homes is fiction. It's just, if you've lived here for decades and you want to you want to stay, then show commitment and become a British citizen. And if you're not a citizen, then yeah, you have to apply for a visa, and that visa will come in conditions, just like the Home Secretary said today. And one of them is having to support yourself. And you know what that is? That's just respecting the taxpayer who works so hard to pay and see so little in return. And frankly, if he or the Labour Party think that's immoral, then, you know, they're more removed from the side of British people than I thought. And the fact that they say, oh, we're deporting your neighbour. We're not deporting your neighbour. We're just asking them to apply either for a visa or citizenship.
Yeah.
That's cruelty.
Yeah, exactly right. And that's it, which is exactly what Shabana Mahmood has proposed at the Labour conference today. If you bear with me, Layla, let's just remind us of Keir Starmer calling you, me, Nigel Farage, millions of British people who are worried about the migrant crisis a bunch of racists. Here he goes.
Well, I do think that it's a racist policy. I do think it's immoral. It needs to be called out for what it is.
And do you think that Reform UK is trying to appeal to racists?
No, I think that there are plenty of people who either vote Reform or are thinking of voting Reform who are frustrated. They had 14 years of failure under the Conservatives. They want us to change things. They may have voted Labour a year ago, and they want the change to come more quickly.
What do you think what does he mean? You know, so he says it's a racist policy, but they've made a big point, Layla, of saying, oh, well, we're not saying Nigel Farage is racist. We're not saying that people who support Reform UK are racists, but that is a racist policy. As I just said, it's the same as Shabana Mahmood's policy going forward. So you're right. This is a betrayal of Keir Starmer's desperation. He cannot argue with you logically, so he's calling you names.
I mean, this is the playbook, right? We've not mentioned race. We're not talking about ethnicity or background. We don't care where you're from. You could be white from America. You know, race doesn't come into it. I don't even know what they're talking about. We're talking about who qualifies to stay permanently in Britain and live off a system that British working people are paying for. The problem is, Kevin, is that the Labour Party really have no respect for how hard ordinary people work to fund this country. They treat taxpayers like a bottomless pit. So, you know, they find the idea of conditions on indefinite leave offensive because, frankly, they've given up on fairness and any kind of discipline to get fiscal discipline or any kind of discipline altogether. I mean, look at the party. It's mired in scandal. Every minister's gone down. So many.
Yeah, the Liverpool conference, Labour Party conference, is like a clown show, gaslighting clown show. Minister after minister taking to the podium to tell us how brilliantly they've done over the last year. It's like, hang on, you're talking about the same country as I am. Could we quickly remind ourselves of the Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, what she said today on stopping the boats?
Today, the boats continue to arrive, and so I will do whatever it takes to secure our borders. Cracking down on the criminal gangs behind the trade, discouraging those who are considering a small boat crossing, sending those home who have no right to be here, and ending the use of hotels, that totem of the Tory legacy that has done so much to divide our communities. In solving this crisis, you may not always like what I do. We will have to question some of the assumptions and legal constraints that have lasted for a generation and more. But unless we have control of our borders, and until we can decide who comes in and who must leave, we will never be the open, tolerant and generous country that I know we all believe in.
What do you make of that, Layla? Because she says, I'll stop at nothing to stop the boats. She wants to stay in the European Convention on Human Rights. In other words, she wants us to continue being subordinate to a foreign court, unable in the end to make our own sovereign decisions because the ECHR can supersede us, overrule us. She wants to continue giving illegal migrants free accommodation. She says, we're going to stop hotels. Well, would this be the same government that just went to court to overrule the decision to close down the Bell Hotel in Epic because the government wanted it open? So that doesn't hold water. So she wants to continue giving migrants free accommodation, often in 4-star hotels. She wants to continue giving migrants free food, free doctors, free dentists, free lawyers, and so many more enticements. She'll stop at virtually everything rather than solve this crisis, won't she?
I mean, yeah, so Labour, they're firm in their words, but they're so soft in their actions. Did she say we have to question some of the international legislation? No, we've been questioning them for decades. We need to remove ourselves from the international legislation, the legal handcuffs that we've put ourselves in that make our borders porous and don't make us a sovereign country. We're done with the questioning. We need action now. And yeah, she'll stop at everything. Like you said, they had the Home Office had the audacity to go into court and say that the migrants' rights matter more than citizens.
And by the way, let's talk about just briefly about the people of Epping, who were, in the manner of these things, dismissed as far-right racists and all that. They were demonstrating, protesting about the fact that 2 migrants from this Bell Hotel in their midst have been charged with sex assault, sexual offences. One of them has now gone to jail, having been found guilty of 2 serious sexual assaults. So these people were not wrong, they were right. They've been proved to be right. And yet we have a government here who went to court to challenge the closure of their local asylum seeker hotel and, of course, won that challenge. So Shabana Mahmood are going to close down asylum seeker hotels. No, you're not. We know very well they're commandeering more and more almost by the day. But unless she leaves the ECHR, unless she stops paying for migrants' lawyers and their free food and their free accommodation, we are never going to solve this problem, because Britain, with all those encouragements, will continue to be the promised land, won't it?
Of course, but also you have a political class and a journalistic class that if you defend women like the people did in Epping, you're called far right. But if you defend Epstein, guess what? They make you an ambassador to the USA. I mean, you laugh, it's comical.
That's a good point.
And they get offended if we want to make rules to enter this country, but they don't get offended by taxing the British taxpayers so much. All they talk about is tax rises. For what? And taxing us without limits is perfectly fine for them. But asking foreigners to meet basic conditions is offensive.
Yeah, exactly right. And I'm going to go off piece very, very slightly now, because this is about journalism. When Nigel Farage talked last week about migrants allegedly taking swans and ducks from park ponds, taking them away to eat them, all the journalists in this country, and of course the great and the good establishment, they were going, that's absolute rubbish, rubbish, why is he lying? Why is he saying these false things? Don't you think some of the journalists might like to go out there and investigate that? Because I'll tell you, there is serious evidence that this is going on. That's our journalistic class for you. They just decide something's not true without investigating it, because they don't particularly like it, because it doesn't fit in with their liberal worldview. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, they do it a lot. They did it with Brexit. They said, we have to reverse, and Labour did the same thing. We have to reverse this because the voters got it wrong. The voters don't know. They're stupid. They don't know what they voted for. There's no respect, actually, for democracy. And there's no respect for the ordinary person. They look down on them. And they silence them. And they smear them. And Reform's the only party that's really speaking up for the ordinary person.
Yeah, and that's why when Keir Starmer calls us all racist, calls millions of people effectively. It's like last summer with the migrant crisis protests after the Southport murders. He immediately said, oh, everyone protesting is far right. It's not true. It wasn't true. The police investigations subsequent to those riots did establish that there was no case for saying that the rioters were far right people who were shipped in from other areas. They just said that wasn't true. But there is our Prime Minister, sees something he doesn't like. Oh, they're all far right. And now, because continue to be worried about the migrant crisis, now we're all racists. Do you think one day that this little man might learn that it's not a great idea to attack your own electorate?
Well, no. What he is doing is he's trying to silence us and monitor us. So his solution to tackling the border is to bring in digital ID. So illegal migrants get hotel rooms, British citizens get tracked for life.
Yeah.
That's the solution.
Well, maybe we'll have a quick chat about that after the break, because Labour is saying, oh, growing public support for digital ID cards. No, there isn't. There's an explosion of public fury against digital ID cards. We'll talk about that afterwards, and I need to talk to you also about Children in Need, the BBC's TV fundraiser. We'll talk about that after this break. Stay tuned, folks.
2.3 million people have already signed a petition against this idea. This is not the same. 4 million people, Julia. 4 million voted for reform. 4 million people voted Reform UK, and not even all of them have signed the petition. What's that got to do with anything? A mass uprising, is it? I think 2.3 million people in 3 days signing a petition is opposed. No. I'm pretty sure the Reform UK members can make up their own mind. There'll be plenty of Labour members. It's not a stretch of the impact. I'm merely pointing out that is not a lot in terms of a population.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. I'm still with Reform UK Westminster Councillor, rising star Layla Cunningham. Hi, Layla.
Hi.
Now, let's talk about children in need. I used to be a TV critic, so every year one of the big chores was to have to sit through all of children in need. I'm not necessarily decrying the good causes that it helps, but as a television spectacle, it is phenomenally boring. It's dreadful to watch. However, now I am going to question some of the causes, or at least one cause that it has been donating to. Incredibly, it turns out that from May 2016 until August 2023, 7 years, Children in Need, this is, you know, a fundraiser where, as you know, you have that big night where everybody donates money all night, and they raise millions and millions of pounds. From 2016 and 2023 to 2023, it donated £420,000 to a charity, an immigration charity. It's called Bail for Immigration. Bail for Immigration currently is producing advice for migrants on how to get round one in, one out, how to game the system and manage to stay. That's what it's always done. It advises migrants how to beat our asylum system and stick around. 420,000 from the BBC. What on earth has that got to do with children? I mean, would the viewers have donated all their money if they'd have known this is where it was going? What does the BBC think it's doing?
I know, isn't it also a charity that's backed by the Home Office?
Yeah, well, the Home Office, there was a system, to be fair, the Home Office says that it hasn't really existed since the Tories, but yes, it used to work with the charity, and the Home Office would help distribute leaflets, advice leaflets produced by Bail for Immigration, the charity. So yes, there was a connection. They say hasn't really happened since Labour got in. But Children in Need, BBC, what does it think it's doing here?
I don't know, but I don't know, and I don't think that's. I think that is outside of the remit of Children in Need, don't you?
Yes, I do. I just don't see where children come into this.
Yeah, it's like 97% men. But I think, by the way, it's still listed as if on the official guidelines as recommended welfare material.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it is. It's still described as a Home Office-backed charity, insofar as it delivers advice to migrants and asylum seekers. This advice is currently taking the form of advising these people how to get round one in, one out. So it really is a charity devoted to helping asylum seekers manage to stay in this country. And I just wonder what that's got to do with comic relief, isn't it? Comic relief donations and Children in Need donations. So there's something sort of badly wrong here, isn't there?
Yeah, I mean, is the charity called Bail for Immigration Detainees? Or
no, it's just called Bail for Immigration.
Right. Okay. And I think they produce a booklet that's like a lawyer's playbook, and it tells them how to delay deportation. You can mention mental health, torture, trafficking. I believe, and I could be wrong, it gives them even a template letter. All they have to do is sign, fill in the blanks.
Yeah. It looks as if the BBC, the £400,000 it's been given, has been coming from comic relief more than Children in Need. That's the red nose thing. But I don't think there's anything funny about handing £400,000 to a charity that helps migrants get around our immigration system. The BBC's got questions to answer here, hasn't it?
I mean, definitely, especially people are thinking they're giving for a good cause, when actually they're telling illegal migrants exactly how to beat our laws. That is not a good cause.
It certainly isn't. Let's go back just before you go. Thanks for joining us, Layla. Always a pleasure. To the ID cards. They're called Brit cards. I can't work out. Of course, Keir Starmer and the gang. Oh well, it's going to crack down on illegal working by migrants. Well, we have a system already whereby legal working requires, proof of residency, and also, of course, your national insurance number. If you don't have a national insurance number, officially you can't work. Now, Keir Starmer delivered this big speech last week, saying, "Oh, well, this will sort this out. This will crack down on illegal working." That's because I think he's so enthralled to rules and regulations that he can barely conceive of people breaking them. Rules were made to be broken and all that.
From his ministers, by the way.
Huh?
He's very happy with his ministers to break them.
Oh, yes, of course he is. But seriously, digital ID cards won't do anything to dent the level of illegal working, will it? I mean, people who employ people on the sort of black market employment system, under the counter, as it were, in kebab shops, Turkish barbers, nail bars. I mean, they already break our employment laws by skirting over the requirement for national insurance numbers, residency proof and all that. They already do that. Why is this new ID card going to make any difference? They'll just break that law as well, won't they?
Of course, anyone who's lived in the real world knows that. Digital ID is basically a punishment for citizens for their failure. We don't need a digital ID system. And they always like to curtail or take away our freedoms under the guise of safety. And once they remove freedoms or liberties for safety, we end up with none of them. Put it this way, they want to track all of us, yet they're not monitoring who comes in the country and who they're putting in towns and villages. Yeah. How does that make sense?
Yeah.
Labour wants to control the public. They do not want to control the border.
Exactly right. They want us all to have a state number, keep tabs on us. This is about socialist control. This is about the subordination of the individual to the state. The state is all supreme and we are just cogs in the national machine. That's what this is all about. Socialists love it. Tony Blair's been obsessed with it for years. Keir Starmer looks as if he's going to bring it in. But are you sensing, this petition, more than 2.5 million signatures already and rising fast, is a phenomenon that British people do not appreciate and I suspect will not accept this assault on our traditional liberties.
Of course not, because we know, so what's going to happen after, and I fear this, that what our rights now will become a privilege that will be distributed to us by the government if we behave through this digital ID card. We do not need a digital ID system to stop the borders. We need a government with a backbone that's not just going to question international legislation that stops us from being sovereign, one that will actually leave the ECHR, scrap all failed international commitments, and take back full control of our borders. And Labour's definitely not it. Only Reform really is saying that. And I think that's why we're polling so high in the polls.
And of course, your party is foursquare against digital ID cards, brick cards as they'll be called. I think that the people are responding to that as well. The Labour Party keeps saying there's growing public support for this. It's quite the reverse. People are horrified by this, aren't they?
Of course, it's not up to the state to give and take freedoms as they wish. The freedoms are ours. And we'll always fight any encroachment on that. And we started with fighting the online. It started with speech, now it's digital ID, and it's all under the guise of safety. Let's see what's next, and let's see how far this digital ID will go. But luckily, I think it's not coming in till 2029. They won't be in government anyway, and we'll scrap it as soon as we win.
Yes, we look forward to that. But I suspect, I'm sensing this rising tide of public fury about this. People just feel this is not British. We are not a papers please society, and I'm sensing that the British public will not let Starmer do this. This could be his poll tax.
We have it in England. We have a system that you can do whatever you want unless the law says you don't. In Europe, it's different. The law tells you what you can do. And he wants to take it back. He wants a bigger state micromanaging all our lives. And didn't he come into government, and I think his speech said that you want politics to tread lightly on your lives?
Yes, he did say that. He's trampling on us with hobnail boots with this. It's outrageous. It's an outrageous assault on traditional British freedom. And I'm sensing that the people simply will not put up with it. I hope they don't. I really do.
Doesn't have a mandate.
Yeah, it doesn't have a mandate because it wasn't in their manifesto. They just introduced this. And by the way, is it just me, or was there no parliamentary debate on this?
Nothing. He's acting like a dictator, an authoritarian dictator. This is how it starts. You know, freedoms are chipped away bit by bit, little by little. We must stand up to it. We Reform and myself say absolutely no to digital IDs.
And I say that as well, Layla. When the Labour say there's growing public support for these Soviet-style ID cards, that's just a lie. It is a lie. Brilliant to talk to you, Layla. Thank you so much for joining us. That's the great Layla Cunningham. She's a Reform UK councillor in Westminster. Many feel she may end up being their next mayoral candidate for Labour, and a damn good one she will be as well if that happens. For, I just said Labour, didn't I? No, she won't be the. She'll be the candidate maybe for Reform, and she'll be a damn good one if that happens. Next up, we're going to talk about a very shocking case of a poor lady who was gang raped in a churchyard in the early hours of Sunday morning. Gang raped by a group of men. Several hours after this, police saying we're on the hunt, we're looking for them. People say, well, no descriptions of any of them. So we all start thinking, but it's asylum seekers. But no. They did. They rose to the bait. They came out and said, and they did issue a description of one of them who was white. So they're now looking for a gang of rapists, but they've only issued a description of one of them, a white man. What about the rest of them? It's just kind of, you know, are you sensing what I'm sensing here? 03444991000. We'll talk about this next.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Shocking story. Poor lady in Oxfordshire in a churchyard in the early hours of Sunday morning was gang raped. several hours after this shocking event caused the church to have to cancel all of its Sunday services. The police had not issued a single description of this gang. I mean, how many people are in a gang? I mean, my feeling is if it's 3, you say 3. Once you get to 4, 5, that becomes a gang. So I assume we're talking about 4 or 5, maybe more people, right? So people say, well, you know, this lady was gang raped. Apparently another brave lady went to her assistance, so she must have seen something as well. So the victim and this lady who went to her assistance, they must have seen something of these gang rapists. So people are saying, well, where's the description? There's no description of anyone. And you know what people start there. Is it asylum seekers again? Is it people that the police don't want to describe in case they seem racist or some crap like that? Well, finally they did respond. A few hours later this morning, they did finally issue a description. They're looking for one white man. So in the gang rape, one white man. So what about the rest of them? Aren't we getting a description of them because they're not white or something? What is going on here? Let's talk to former Met Police Detective Mike Neville. Welcome, Mike. You heard what I was saying there. I mean, it's a very strange sequence of events. As a former copper, you know, you've got this terrible, shocking attack on the early hours of Sunday morning in a churchyard, St Mary's Church in Banbury, in Oxfordshire. You know, if you were involved in this investigation, it'd be very sensitive, but there's a victim. There's also this lady, brave lady, who tried to help her. So you've got 2 potential witnesses there at least. I mean, wouldn't you be, you know, sensitively trying very hard to get a description as soon as possible? So why no description? What's the point of saying we're looking for some men? I mean, there's no point in that. So under pressure, they finally, the local police force, say, well, yeah, we've got a description of one of them, he's white. That's it. What about the rest of them? What's going on here, do you think, Mike?
Well, we're back to this 2-tier argument, aren't we? The police are absolutely terrified. The worst thing that police fear is being accused of racism. They'll happily almost let crimes go unsolved rather than challenge what, you know, this idea that they might be accused of racism. And this isn't the first time. I saw an incident in Devon in August where another attack near a church. We're looking for a suspect. Well, what does this suspect look like in the middle of Devon? You know, you're saying to the public, you know, can you look at your dash cams, your Ring doorbells, your shop CCTV? Well, it's all right saying that, but what exactly are we looking for here? And I think the worst case I've seen of this was a man called, he was eventually sentenced in 2021 as Zephaniah McLeod. This man, he went on a rampage around Birmingham for about 90 minutes. He stabbed and killed one man. He stabbed 7 others and then fled. And while he was missing for several hours, and during the time he was missing, the West Midlands Police simply didn't put out a description. So not only are they not investigating this was an enormous risk to the public not to say this man, he was a black guy, mentally ill. Why aren't they sticking out everything they know so people can, you know, lock the doors and at least avoid this person? Now we know that the College of Police should have put out guidance to say after the Axel Ruda Cabana to say you've got to, you know, you can't have these voids of information occurring. But what it manifests itself and is what we saw after the incident in Liverpool, where they were quite easy to say, oh, it's a white guy involved, just like the case in Oxford. But all it leaves is that it leaves people to think if they don't say who it is, they're obviously not white. So what the police are achieving is just simply doubling down on what people think already.
Yeah, this is Thames Valley Police, the Cherwell branch of that force, confirming, this is the quote, one of the offenders is said to be a white man. What about the rest of them? Don't they see that if they're going to say one of the offenders is said to be a white man, that the public are going to go, well, what about a description of the rest of them? You know, are you not giving us a description of the rest of them because they're not white? That's what the public will be asking.
It is, Kevin. And what you have, though, is you've got officers who've almost been brainwashed into this. You know, when I went to Hendon, it was almost like a military-style academy. The focus was on fighting crime. Now they go to university and they basically, you know, they lectured in DEI and woke things. And the officers produce, you know, that they're in fear of being accused of racism, because if the thing is, what can get you the sack is that accusation, and so people skirt round the edges. They don't give the truth, and the reality is that so little of these crimes are solved. So, for example, rapes. You'd think stranger rapes, there would be... I thought to myself, it must be around 75% of these are solved. Only about 6% of stranger rapes are solved in London, for example. Now, you're not going to solve crime if you're appealing for things and not giving the public the full information so they can check and find it.
As a former detective, you must have investigated this kind of case. I mean, you know, far be it from me to talk about police procedure or pretend I have any knowledge of it, but wouldn't your first priority as the investigating officer, as I said sensitively though, to just desperately try to get descriptions of the suspects? Wouldn't that be your first priority?
Yeah, absolutely. The victim, once the victim's safe and secure, get the information. And I was struck by the Devon case. You know, after like several hours, they hadn't released anything. Well, surely a detective has spoken to this person. No matter, unless somebody's unconscious, they'll be able to give some kind of description of, you know, are they black, white, Asian, Chinese? Who are we looking for? Man, woman, what sort of age? So usually a description can be given. And as I say, in this world of modern technology where, you know, we're driving around with these cameras in our cars and cameras in our shops and cameras on our front door, you've got a lot of chance of getting these people. But how does a shopkeeper check? You know, if you're telling people, oh, it's some men. Well, what kind of men? You know, the shopkeeper can't randomly go through hours and hours of video looking for some men. If you give them an idea, oh, it's a white man in a green hat and a black guy wearing a blue trousers, you've got a chance of getting some detailed descriptions and possibly some CCTV. But with the way they're going on here, they're too afraid, and this has been caused over decades, and it'll take a long time to undo, because the police's fear, as I said to you, the police don't mind being incompetent, but they don't like being accused of racism.
And the headline in the Mail, for example, is this: police only release description of one suspect in Oxfordshire churchyard gang rape. Officers say they are looking for a white man who was part of the group, but fail to describe the rest. Well, I mean, I'd like some, at the very least, I'd like some sort of numerical assessment of what's going on. Yeah. A gang rape, how many people are in the gang? You know, there must be some estimation of this. Well, and as I say, go on.
So I was going to say that, you know, if you say, oh, there's 6 men involved and you're a shopkeeper, you think, oh God, there were 6 guys in here. Like, you know, it wasn't 4 or 8, it was 6. But even if the police clarified it and said, look, the victim was very badly injured, she only saw one person and this is the description she gave. But what they do is offer these vague sort of press releases, and they create a void. And we saw it, you know, in a missing person case, the Nicola Bulley case, where this void was created, the Axel Ruder-Cabana case, a void created, and people telling outright lies, to be honest, about Axel Ruder-Cabana. And despite guidance going out for at the highest level, they're still failing to do this. And what they're doing is they continually lose trust and confidence from the public.
Absolutely. Now, I'm not accusing them of this, but if they are withholding descriptive information about these rapists, this gang of rapists, on woke grounds, then that is an egregious thing to do, because we're talking about public safety. You know, if you're withholding information about a dangerous group of men, that's a danger to the public. I mean, I'm not actually saying that they're doing this, but if that is the case, and it does seem to me, Mike, to be a bit of a giveaway. Oh, we've got a gang rape, I don't know, 4 or 5 men. We've only got one description. He's a white guy. We don't know about the rest. Seems to be a bit of a giveaway. If they're deliberately withholding information because they're reluctant to say, well, the rest of them are of Arab description, Middle Eastern or black or whatever. If they're withholding information on that grounds, they're endangering the public with their wokery, aren't they?
Well, they are, and it would be especially bad if there was another attack by these men and descriptions hadn't been circulated, which could have resulted in information which could have had them detained before they did that. You know, they could have made arrest. And so it's a really foolish thing that the police are playing at. And as I say, what they've been doing, in their minds, they're convinced themselves that they are, you know, helping ethnic minorities, they're not doing people down and they're not being racist. But of course, the people from ethnic minorities would want these descriptions as well, because they're just as at risk as anybody else. But the police are obsessed. It is an absolute obsession with race and diversity, and it needs to change, because what it impacts on performance, and when the police don't perform, we're all less safe.
Exactly right, Mike. Very good to talk to you as always. Mike Neville, their former Met Police detective there. I mean, what do you think about this? I just think it's a very strange story. A gang rape, poor lady, gang raped in a churchyard, early hours of Sunday morning in Banbury in Oxfordshire, and no description for quite a long time. Then when finally they say they're looking for a white man. What about the rest of them? Why are they not even trying to explain why they're saying a white man? You know, if I was the cops and I was releasing that statement, I would say, look, we've only got one decent description, and that's of this guy with a long nose and he's white or whatever, wearing glasses, whatever. Unfortunately, the rest of them were wearing hoods and we have no cogent descriptions. But instead they just say, well, we're looking for a white man. I mean, it's a bit of a giveaway, isn't it? 0344 499 1000. When we come back, we'll be taking your calls. So give me a ring and let's talk. It's good to talk on Talk. That next, stay tuned.
Legal case because he hasn't been charged. He's been arrested but not charged. Christine, he has been arrested but not charged. There are no active legal proceedings.
In Scotland, when you're arrested, it becomes an active case.
Okay, well, I'm in London. Okay, Christine.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back after the 9 o'clock news. I'll be joined by the great Kinsey Schofield. Lots to talk about on the Prince Harry and Meghan front this week. Prince Harry's reaction to the son's story, that his reunion with his dad wasn't all hearts and flowers, was actually rather formal. Harry staged this extraordinary hissy fit, issuing this massive statement saying, oh, it wasn't like that, and so on and so forth. Harry is the polar opposite, isn't he, to the Queen's diktat, which was never complain, never explain. He spends all his time complaining and trying to explain everything from his point of view. We'll talk about that after the 9 o'clock news with Kinsey. But we've still got time to take a couple of phone calls. So let's talk first to Grace in London. Hello, Grace.
Hi.
Hello.
I think that Starmer should consider the fact that if people actually are racist, and I'm certainly not saying that Farage or anyone who supports him necessarily is, but if a person actually is, then calling them racist doesn't cause them to become less racist. It just makes them more defiant. And with all kinds of things, I think that we as human beings, we don't necessarily respond well to being labelled or criticised in the way that...
but I'll tell you what, Grace, you see, calling people racist and far right and stuff like that, that is these Labour virtue signallers sort of juvenile game. That's what they do. They hurl that particularly racist. It's a way for them, they think, of shutting down sensible debate from, in their minds, undermining their political opponents and so on and so forth. The trouble is, Grace, they've used it so much over the past few years that they've undermined the power of it. It now sounds like verbal confetti that nobody particularly takes seriously. They don't take the charge of racism seriously, but they find the fact that our Prime Minister, of all people, wants to attack millions of people in this country who are worried about the migrant crisis and effectively call them racists. They find that very annoying.
Well, yeah, I think we have a tendency sometimes to criticise other people to avoid looking at our own flaws or sins. I also think that whether we care for people from other places, and I do think that we should do, is not only a matter of immigration and being nice to people who've come here, although I personally think that's important, but I also, and that's not to say I think that we should have, I'm not saying we should have open borders, but I think that Starmer should also, if he wants to be morally upright, he should be thinking too about things such as the fact that wealth is being stripped out of the global south through our banks and corporations. It's very easy for politicians to pretend that they are very progressive by...
Yeah, but that notwithstanding, you're going off piece here, Grace. What we're talking about is... No, what we're talking about is the Prime Minister calling us all racists, and we won't have it. That's the point.
I'm saying that there are more things to keep in mind than just what one can show off to the public. If he says, I'm very welcoming to people from elsewhere, then he might look to some voters as though he's progressive, but there are actually other things to think about as well.
Well, OK, there's lots of things to think about him. Grace, point taken. I've got to move on, but thanks for a good call as always. Grace in London. Let's quickly talk to Jenny in Hampshire. Hello, Jenny. You want to talk about Shabana Mahmood?
Yes, I watched part of it as much as I could stomach, and
it's like the gaslighting parade, isn't it? That Labour conference. They're just standing at the podium. All of them are just lying to us.
The thing is, Kevin, as far as from where I am, I'm not far right. I'm just a person that's concerned about what's going on in this country. And I'm sick and tired of anybody that says that they're worried about immigration. You're far right. You're a racist. You're
racist, far right,
but
exactly.
I think the government needs to take a long, hard look at itself, and that's the whole government. The whole front bench are two-faced, very, very low life and very racist themselves about the people, the indigenous people of this country, the people that were born and bred here, the people whose parents fought in wars here, not people that come in boats and bum off of us. We're the ones that are being called far right. They are then far, far left.
They make us, the British citizens, we're like second-class citizens. They prioritise the needs, the wants, the desires of migrants, asylum seekers over us, and people are sick of it. And you're quite right, Jenny. They do not want this Prime Minister turning around to all of us and basically going, oh, you're worried about the migrant crisis, are you? Well, in that case, you're a racist. I mean, we're not going to take that anymore, are we?
Well, not only that, what Mood said about the people that marched on the 13th of September, for the amount of people that were there, I thought it was really, really, really well done. I only saw it on TV because I couldn't go myself. But what about all these people?
Yeah, well, they were dismissed by Starmer and the gang as far right and dangerous to the public.
Yeah.
Absolute nonsense. Absolute nonsense. That was a very peaceful, you know, there as many as 500,000 people there, 45 arrests. There was no trouble. Jenny, very good point. Got to move on because I've got the news coming up. Jenny in Hampshire there. And indeed, we are having the news at 9 o'clock. And after that, I am going to be joined by the great Kinsey Schofield. Lots to talk about on Planet Sussex this week, and let me know what you feel about all the issues we've been talking about. That next, stay tuned.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to the final hour of tonight's Political Asylum. In half an hour or so, I'm going to be taking your calls. Do you agree with Keir Starmer that we're all racists, all of us who worry about the migrant crisis, who feel too many foreigners are being allowed into our country, no questions asked? We worry about how much it's costing this country, billions and billions of pounds a year. We're all racists and we're immoral. Do you feel that you are? Because you're concerned about the migrant crisis? Do you think Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister, is right to call us racists, to call us immoral? Let me know what you think about that. 03444 991 1000. And should the NHS, our health service, be officially backing first cousin marriages. First cousin marriages are popular among our Pakistani community. They're popular among Muslims around the world. But first cousin marriages, statistically, as a matter of fact, produce twice as many children with birth defects as, shall we say, normal marriages, marriages between people who are not related to each other, who are not first cousins. So definitely, scientific fact, they produce children with birth defects. So rather than the NHS saying, oh, well, you know, other things cause birth defects as well, smoking, drinking, that sort of thing, this is very culturally good. It's good for economic harmony among the Muslim community and so on and so forth. Rather than them saying that, how about the back moves among the Tories, particularly, to ban first cousin marriages because they produce children with birth defects. How about that? 03444991000. Before we get to you, this is the bit I've been looking forward to this all weekend because boy, oh boy, has it all been kicking off on Planet Harry. A warm welcome to the show to the host of the Kinsey Schofield Unfiltered, Kinsey Schofield. Hi, Kins.
I don't think Harry had as much fun this weekend watching everything spill all over the internet, but I'm glad that you enjoyed it.
Well, I didn't enjoy it. I just thought it was well, I thought as a journalist, I thought, well, this is a very good story. But it's extraordinary. So The Sun on Saturday, Matt Wilkinson, their excellent royal correspondent, wrote up something that he'd actually told me about a couple of weeks ago. You know, that actually Harry's story about, oh, I went to Clarence House and my dad on open arms. It's all like, you know, I'm completely forgiven. I'm back in the fold. I'm going to be a half in, half out royal. Yes, yes. I'm back. Yeah. Well, what the Sun reported was that was nothing like the truth of what happened. That what actually happened was that Harry went there. I heard he had to go through the front entrance of Clarence House Palace, which is King Charles's London residence, of course. And that's where, you know, members of the public, charity bosses, politicians who have an audience with the king, they have to go through there, they have to go through security. I heard Harry had to do that. Either way, the story in The Sun said that when Harry got in the room with his dad, hadn't seen him for 19 months. They had tea for two, well, tea for three, actually, because Queen Camilla, to her enormous credit, said, I want to witness this meeting to make sure that none of it appears in the press afterwards. So Camilla saying, Harry, you breathe a word of this to the media, I'll know where it came from. So tea for three, if you like. 53 minutes, 54 minutes, seems to be two stories, either 53 or 54 minutes. Either way, all over in less than an hour. And the story is that Harry was taken aback, surprised, shall we say. Let's not go so far as to say shocked, but surprised at how formal this meeting was. There was an exchange of gifts. King Charles gave Harry a 41st birthday present, and Harry gave his dad a kind of framed photograph, which was reported to be a picture of Meghan and the kids. Harry, subsequent to The Sun's report, issued this massive, great statement, you know, going through every single detail. It's not true. The men in grey suits are trying to sabotage my reunion with my father. You know, they said I gave a picture of Meghan and the kids. That's not true. That wasn't the picture I gave, and so on and so forth. Going through every single detail of the story, blaming courtiers, men in grey suits at the palace, for trying to sabotage his bid to get back in with Charles and the royal family. I mean, it's like the polar opposite, wasn't it, of the Queen's diktat, the Queen's motive, which was never complain, never explain. That statement that he released was bizarre in its kind of detail and how long it was, and very strange, don't you think?
I mean, I just wonder where the outrage and frustration was when Us Weekly reported that they threw their arms around each other and Harry cried at the sight of his father. And Page 6 reporting how their inside scoop, what a warm and pleasant meeting it was between the two of them. Why does he only lash out at the Sun on Saturday in a report that we wouldn't be talking about today had Harry not reacted to it? He's only elevated and given this story more gasoline and fuel by acknowledging it whatsoever. Which is, again, just, it shows you how immature he is, and a lack of growth, and a lack of learning from the last 5 years. A lack of any education based on past experiences. He just continues to be a child pitching a hissy fit. And I think I dissect this a little differently. I look at the whole sabotage story as gaslighting and trying to distract, because he's very vague. They give no specifics as to who specifically is working against Harry within the palace to sabotage or to create any sort of issue, destruction, who's trying to be destructive within the royal household. No names, similar to the royal racist. It's Harry and Meghan throwing out vague claims again. I think it's all trying to deflect from over the last 2 weeks, people have been reporting, including Lady C, Richard Eden. I've had emails from anonymous sources in my inbox that there has been a plot to tear down the credibility of the Wales family that's claiming William's not working enough, trying to bring back the work-shy Willie. I can list off a million accomplishments he's had since 2025, saying that they shouldn't move into this new house, critical of them for trying to move their family into a new home to escape cancer memories. What else? I mean, there have been several headlines that have been attacking the Prince and Princess of Wales, and it just felt really odd. And Richard Eden and some of these other reporters are suggesting that this has been a calculated attempt by the Sussexes to tear down the Wales family so that they can slide back in some way, shape, or form to the British royal fold. If they can bring down William and improve their popularity in the UK, perhaps there's a place for them there. I tend to agree with that, and I feel like the entire sabotage storyline is just trying to distract and tear away attention from the headlines that the Sussexes could potentially be behind a smear campaign towards the Prince and Princess of Wales.
I agree with you, and the King has let it be known that it's not true that he's concerned about William's work rate, and B, that he's perplexed and saddened by Harry's story that his reunion with Charles is being sabotaged by the men in grey suits. So the King has let it be known that he's not with Harry on this. And it's interesting, isn't it, as you quite rightly said, in Page 6, the excellent gossip column in the New York Post and in US Us Weekly, these are both outlets that Harry and Meghan are known to use. So when you see stories about Harry and Meghan in Page 6 or Us Weekly, the chances are they came from Harry and Meghan. So what do we get in those two publications? Oh, Harry cried, it was so fantastic. It's quite clear that soon he'll be back working with the royal family, and so on and so forth. Then you get the Sun story, which I suspect is far more near the actual truth. That in fact,
the Sun is the only one that brought us the details about the gifts, and that's another idiotic mistake of Prince Harry and his team to go, well, this part of this is true, because as a reader I go, well, if part of it's true, why would that source lie? If part of this is true and you exchanged gifts, then why would that source lie to me about the tension in the room, about the atmosphere? If I were the secret source, wouldn't the more outrageous lie be to lie about the gifts that were exchanged? So what? Meghan's not in the picture. It's a picture of the Sussex family, which was the report.
Which stands to reason, doesn't it? Here, Dad, here's a picture of your grandchildren that you haven't seen for years. Here's a picture of them. Do you think it would have been an actual picture of their faces, or would it have been the usual thing, picture of the back of their heads?
I mean, I don't even care to predict because I find those children very uninteresting. I refuse to call them prince and princess. They're, you know, Lily specifically, who I will refer to as Lily forever, is an American child. Their titles mean nothing here in the United States. And they've come to realize that. And that's why they are so desperate to have a foot in the UK.
So what this comes down to, Kinsey, I think is pretty clear. There's this guy, this ginger nuts, old Prince Harry, who wants to deliver his version of what he thinks the truth is. It's his version of events. Yes, it was a triumphant success when I saw my dad again after 19 months. You know, we wept. We embraced each other. It's only a matter of time before I'll be coming back here 4, 5, 6 times a year to perform royal duties.
To help William, to help
exactly.
William.
Yeah, this is all his event, you know, and my next year I've got to be focused on my dad and all that. And then the Sun comes out and said, well, far from it. This wasn't what it was like. Quite clearly, with Harry's massive great statement, oh, you know, they're trying to sabotage my reunion with my dad, rapprochement and all that. The King then lets it be known he's perplexed and saddened by Harry's version of events, by Harry's statement. So the King implicitly is almost saying, well, the Sun is much nearer the truth. So what we've got here is a 41-year-old man, you know, who's not very mature, who hasn't got his own way. He thought he persuaded the people of this country, and indeed America and around the world, that he's back in the fold. He's been forgiven for all his sins of the past, and it's good to go. He thought he'd succeeded in this. A different truth has come out. He doesn't like it. He's stamping his feet like an impetuous, you know, tantrum-prone little teenager who didn't get his way. That's basically it, isn't it?
Yeah, and the King didn't just, in my opinion, allow somebody to speak on his behalf under the guise of palace sources. He took off to Balmoral with Prince William. You know, he took off with Prince William to have some private time, to probably have some strategies about what to do with Prince Andrew and Prince Harry. And that's got to hurt Prince Harry to know that there are likely discussions being had about his future, about him in general, about his betrayal, about his history, about his lack of accountability. I mean, one thing that Prince Harry and Prince Andrew have in common is this refusal to take accountability for their actions or show humility. And I think that that is one of the reasons we'll never see either one of them back in the royal fold.
Exactly right. And now let's go back to this meeting. What is quite clear, the Sun's done this, other publications as well, the Times, for God's sake, here, you know, very reputable newspapers. So you got some serious national newspapers in this country and I think around the world who said that what actually happened in this meeting, Harry was surprised about its formality, about the stiffness of it, if you like. He's said to have said to palace officials as he got there, he said, oh my God, I feel like an official visitor. Well, that's essentially what he was. He denies that, of course. He says, I didn't say that. But that's what's being reported. But what we do know, we must, I think we can be pretty sure of that happened in this meeting, according to the Times, according to the Sun, according to quite a few other publications, that the King sat his son down, his problematical, troublesome younger son down, and said, listen, you can forget about all this coming back 5 times a year to maybe take some of the load off your brother, to do some royal duties. Forget about it. Just like my mother said, Her Majesty the Queen, the late, great Majesty the Queen, you will never be a half-in, half-out royal. You cannot do that. So part-time royalty is not available to you. So he got told that in no uncertain fashion, and again, like a spoilt brat who can't take it when he doesn't get his own way. He kind of tries to invent a new version of events, and then when somebody says, well, it wasn't
well, it's worse than that. Yeah. He goes back and strategizes with his team in California, whether it's on video chat or, you know, voice call, I don't know what. but someone from his team leaks that it's all systems go and that he's crafting a new role for himself within the royal family, and that that's a conversation that he's had with his father during that 50-something minute meeting that they had. And I think what is so vulgar is understanding so simply that there's no half in, half out, and that the Queen was adamant about that during the Megxit agreement, and watching Harry try to bulldoze it, whether it's Colombia or Nigeria or 4 days in the UK playing with balloon animals, and then having a conversation with his dad, which we do understand. There was a no half in, no half out. You've made your bed, now lie in it conversation. And then Harry's team or somebody from the Sussex camp leaking to the Daily Mail that a conversation had been had. The King and Harry were trying to craft a new role for him. They were going to be doing joint engagements as a show of unity, and that Harry would be taking some of the pressure off Prince William, who the King had been having issues with due to his lack of schedule. And we find out that that's simply not true, that Prince William is very busy. In fact, he had competing engagements with Harry the week he was there. And we have found out since then that there are real concerns that the Sussexes have launched this campaign to try to create friction between the King and Prince William, and somehow jeopardize the Wales' popularity in the UK, which they believe would give them an open invitation to swoop in and save the day. You know, when we needed Harry and Meghan the most, and I say this lightly, we don't need Harry and Meghan. They're
When was that?
But it was when the King and Catherine were both dealing with cancer.
Good point. Yeah.
You know, and Harry and Meghan were not only MIA, but they weren't sending their sympathies. They weren't telling their audience to stop bullying the Princess of Wales. And it's not out of pocket to suggest, hey, you guys, I need you to tone down the rhetoric. Not only are we spokespeople for anti-bullying, but it's just cruel. We saw it this summer with the Amazon show, The Summer I Turned Pretty. Amazon and their social media channels all went online and said, leave this cast alone. Stop bullying this cast. They're real people. The royal family, when Meghan was getting attacked, when she first started getting negative press, they created social media guidelines, the royal family. And they said, you either follow these guidelines when interacting with our official accounts, or we will block you. They did that to protect Meghan. And Harry and Meghan didn't step up and say, leave this family alone. They're dealing with cancer. You know, the time has come and gone. Harry and Meghan have proven they're entirely self-consumed. And the only objective here is to try to regain some of the popularity Prince Harry misses so that he can pursue and his wife can pursue commercial ventures. And that's all this is. It's selfish.
Typically. Now, you mentioned MIA earlier, missing in action. One person who has been conspicuous by her absence from this ongoing narrative, this strange narrative between Harry and the British royals, once again, basically at war with each other. The King saying, I'm perplexed and saddened by what my son said. Harry saying, no, he's not perplexed and saddened, he's thrilled with me and he doesn't like William. All of that nonsense. Where's Meghan? MIA? She hasn't said a damn thing. Every time Harry seems to be in a world of trouble, she seems to disappear, doesn't she?
Well, that's the truth. I mean, we did see her at Kevin Costner's 805 live charity event where she was clinging all over Prince Harry like a stink on you-know-what. She was just wrapped all over him, and like the claw was back out. We know that we're going to see them in New York in about less than 2 weeks. So we'll get some Meghan, but the reality is Senabale falls to pieces. African Parks charity starts to crumble, and Meghan Markle disappears. Whereas Prince Harry alienates his entire family and fan base in loyal royal watchers by defending Meghan Markle. He's given up his entire life, everything he's ever known. Meghan Markle never makes similar sacrifices for Prince Harry.
Harry, though, is his own worst enemy, isn't he? He is a bull in a china shop. Whatever advances he makes, he pretty soon destroys them because he doesn't really know how to go about anything. So, you know, after he lost that long-running, ludicrous legal battle to get armed police guards whenever he comes to Britain, rather than just saying, well, I've lost, you know, let's move on, he gives that kind of devastating interview to the BBC saying my dad wants me dead and nonsense like that. So he really, really spoiled his wicket there. And then he comes over to Britain, and whatever sort of goodness he achieved by, you know, actually orchestrating a meeting with his dad, whatever the truth of that meeting was, he has now spoiled whatever advances he might have made with this a version of events. You know, men in grey suits are trying to sabotage my relationship with my father. This statement, his long statement issued at the weekend, his weird long statement, explaining every detail of what happened in that meeting, according to him, has just spoiled things again. So whatever goodness he achieved by seeing his dad for tea, he's ruined it again with this unseemly row afterwards.
Yeah, we would not be talking about this story if it weren't for his response. We would have moved on. There are other things to talk about. I don't think he realizes the damage that he does. But I have a theory that it's Meghan that really wanted the narrative corrected, because one of the specific details that we get that no one asked for is that Meghan is not in the photo. Well, who would care about that? Who would care, you know, so passionately about Meghan not being featured in the photo handed to King Charles? There's really only one person I can imagine caring about that, and it's Meghan Markle. So I'm thinking that Meghan lit the fire under his butt that led to this very bizarre, very unnecessary statement that blew up in their faces.
And it's indicative of, particularly of Meghan, isn't it? I mean, Harry's just as bad, but I think he gets led astray by Meghan. Meghan cannot take anything even slightly derogatory about her in the press. As soon as that happens, she starts releasing statements. She starts feeding Page 6 or Us Weekly. Oh, no, here's the real... She's so sensitive to anything that's written about her. And she's taken Harry down that avenue as well. Hence, this extraordinary statement on Saturday, which was deeply, deeply unroyal. It was the sort of statement that some sort of two-bit reality TV star might release. Wasn't royal.
No, I didn't do that. Well, I mean, I honestly think we're giving this statement too much credit. I think where Harry really blew up this path for himself, this reconciliation path for himself, was talking to The Guardian, which is notorious for hating the existence of the British royal family. It goes out of its way to discredit the British royal family. Prince Harry is very picky about who he engages with. He handpicked The Guardian to sit down with, and then had the audacity to say his conscience was clear, which is code for I have no regrets, which is code for I wouldn't do anything different. And he said he was not airing his family's dirty laundry in public. He also insisted that, you know, I can't even remember all of the lies that were featured in this Guardian article. But what I can say is, statements like that would infuriate Prince William. That Harry hasn't learned anything over the last 5 years, that there's been no growth. I mean, just listen to William talk to Eugene Levy in his new travel series. He talks about how 2024 was the worst year of his life, and then goes on to say, life brings us these challenges so we can grow. I mean, you see how differently their minds work, I mean, Prince William is the one that we should aspire to be like, who says, you know, I had the worst year of my life. I'm so grateful that I survived it. And here are the lessons I learned. I'm stronger after it. I'm more courageous. Whereas Prince Harry is still kicking about, complaining about things that happened a decade ago when his Hollywood, you know, D-list girlfriend tried to elbow her way to the top of the pyramid.
Exactly right. And as I say, what he's doing, this statement and his actions, and Meghan and him, they behave, as I say, like a D-list celebrity. Whereas the royals should rise above this kind of stuff. And the king apparently not only has ruled out entirely the notion of Harry ever being a half-in, half-out royal. Some publications reporting that the king has come to be dismayed because he feels that Harry, you know, with his right-on causes, his wokery, actually stands for everything that King Charles and the British royal family are not. He feels that Harry does not.
You mean always complain, always explain?
Yeah, always complain, always explain. But also all this wokery and the right-on stuff, and you know, Britain, we're a nation of slave drivers, we're all racists. King Charles hates that. So there's another problem there. There's this kind of cultural divide between.
I don't know. King Charles apologizes for a lot of stuff he doesn't need to apologize for, to pander. I know you've seen some of that too. I agree with you that he doesn't think that Prince Harry shares the same principles he does, but I do see King Charles bow down to certain groups that he shouldn't have to appease, like the leader of all faiths. Chill out. Yeah. You're the head of the church, you know, of England.
Net zero claptrap, net zero claptrap, all that, yeah. But
I love King Charles, but you know what? I think the bigger picture that we're missing is this is a man with cancer who continues to show up to work every day and bust his freaking butt. Harry and Meghan are quitters. They love to quit. Whether it's the British royal family, whether it's Spotify, whether it's Senabale, they are quitters. The king has little to nothing in common with this kid. He might be like, invite James Hewitt to tea next time. He might just be like curious. But I just think that
I'd like to be a fly on the wall for that meeting.
Yeah, I just think that the king has nothing in common with this kid, because Harry is just such, I don't want to use the word loser, but Harry's a quitter, and the king continues to show up. And I think we should applaud him for trying, but Harry keeps proving himself unworthy.
Absolutely. Radar Online reporting that the king feels that his son represents the very opposite of the values he wants the crown to embody. Harry attracts constant controversy and the monarchy cannot afford that. And Harry's just proved that by the way he behaved over this weekend. It's just bizarre, I think. I mean, this guy just cannot seem to get a handle on reality. Kinsey, fantastic to talk to you as always. We'll talk again on Thursday. Always a pleasure. Kinsey Schofield there, host of Kinsey Schofield Unfiltered. Well, we'll take your calls after the break. You might want to call about Harry, 03444991000. So your calls, your messages, maybe we've got a few WhatsApp voice notes as well. So all of that still to come. Stay tuned.
Well, the Prime Minister wasn't saying, and nor would I, that people who are thinking of voting for Reform UK are racist. I do not think they are. Reform UK's leadership have been proposing some policies which look pretty racist to me, but they've also proposed privatising the health service, so you have to pay to see your GP. I suspect a lot of people thinking of voting Reform wouldn't agree with that. We also had Farage in the United States, in Congress, pleading with the United States to put sanctions on British workers to get rid of their jobs.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. I've got to say, this one-in, one-out deterrent is really starting to take effect. You know, the number of migrants coming across the channel has just been reduced to nothing. It's an amazing... Oh, wait a minute. Hang on a second. On Saturday, 895 migrants crossed the channel illegally in small boats. Not so small, some of them. They've got these new super small boats. I don't know why. Got to get a different big boats or something that carry 125 migrants each. One of those came across on Saturday. Another one came across yesterday, apparently, among 7 more boats. So 895 on Saturday, 403 yesterday. One in, one out. What a deterrent. What are these people talking about? Shabana Moon, I'll stop at nothing to solve the migrant crisis. It's going on now. It's rocketing. Come on, it's ridiculous. 03444991000. Before we go to the phones, let's take a quick WhatsApp voice note. It's Tristan on Keir Starmer.
I'll tell Keir Starmer why we don't like him, because he's a pathological liar. Let's go through them. Everything is fully costed. Lies. Energy prices won't go up. Lies. Your council tax won't go up. Lies. We will be a party of service. Lies. Country before party. Lies. I will make sure there's no corruption. Lies. He's a pathological liar, and karma's going to get him.
Tristan, you make a very good point. This is the first Prime Minister, I think we could just say, and we do say it all the time, Keir Starmer is a liar. He lies and he lies and he lies. And he cannot hit back at us when we say that, because he just does lie. It's a very, very disconcerting trait for a Prime Minister to have, to be a pathological liar. That's his method of dealing with problems. Oh, you've caused a real mess here. No, I haven't. Your policy, winter fuel, that's a disaster. No, it's not. You're not solving the migrant crisis, are you? Yes, we are. And so on and so on. Stop lying to us. We're not stupid. Let's talk to... Kevin. Oh, no, not Kevin. Kevin in Basingstoke. OK. Hello, Kevin.
Oh, hello.
Yeah, all right. What do you want to say?
Yeah. You remember me, do you?
Of course I remember you. You always come on and give us all a hard time. What do you want to say today, Kev?
Yeah, you're talking about... you said we've got a problem with mass migration. Well, I don't think we have got a problem. No, you said we haven't got control. We have got control because... people have to apply for work visas, and then we give them the work visa, don't we? So that's full control.
All right, Kev. Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, of course. I think everybody looks at our migration situation and say it's fully controlled. It's under control. You think that's what people think, do you?
Well, the jobs these people are doing are sort of IT, engineering, nurses, doctors, care workers.
Most of them aren't working at all. Most of them aren't working at all. Look, Kev, if you're just going to come in and give us a Labour press release, you've got to do better than this. This is rubbish. This is rubbish.
Talk about something else then. Let's talk about ID cards, if you like.
Yeah.
You had Layla on here said that ID cards were chipping at our rights and stuff.
They are. They're an assault on our freedom.
Yeah, but Reform UK wants us to leave the ECHR.
That's not. Well, yeah, so do I.
So that's taking away our freedom.
No, it's not. No, it's not. The ECHR restricts our freedom. It restricts this nation's freedom to make sovereign decisions that won't be overturned by a foreign court. The ECHR's does not give this nation freedom. It puts this nation into shackles.
Well, no, it's a safety net, isn't it?
Oh, rubbish. Rubbish. Okay, you tell me one good thing the ECHR does. What do we? You tell me one thing we get out of being a member of the. One good thing we get out of being a member of the ECHR. One thing.
Well, because if you leave the ECHR, they want to leave the ECHR, so it takes away.
We all want to leave the ECHR. Millions of people want to leave the ECHR. It's not just reform. It's madness to be in that organisation. Why? Why bother?
Well, taking away our. If we leave the ECHR, then they're suggesting that they would take away asylum seekers' rights. So if they can take away asylum seekers' rights, what's to stop them to take away our rights?
What's that got to do with the ECHR?
Well, because they're leaving the
ECHR... We don't. The ECHR's got nothing to do with my rights. I'm a British citizen.
No.
So are you, Kev?
All of our rights are protected.
You shouldn't be, but you are.
All of our rights are protected. If it stops the government taking away...
What goes on in your head, Kev? What goes on in your head? Honestly. I like our conversations, but honestly, you have no idea what you're talking about. Do call in again, because I like comedy breaks on my show, but anytime, Kev. Nice to talk to you. What a load of crap. Shall we go to Matt in Cheshire for perhaps a more sensible conversation? Hello, Matt.
Hi, good evening, Kev. Does he not remember that we had rights like decades, hundreds of years before the ECHR?
Matt, don't worry too much about Kevin in Basingstoke. He swallowed a Labour press release in about 1963, and it's still stuck in him. He talks absolute rubbish. You want to talk about Shabana Mahmood?
Yeah, firstly, with Rachel Reeves' speech, Shabana Mahmood's speech, and Keir Starmer's up-and-coming speech, you could be mistaken for thinking you're at like a robotics convention or something like that.
Have you been watching it today, Matt? I have, and it's like, hang on a second. It's like we are being gaslit by this lot. They're all standing, one by one. You got Rachel Reeves, Shabana Mahmood, David Lammy, Bridget Phillipson, all staking to the podium, and all of them basically saying breakfast clubs, fixing the foundations, that's it, and then telling us that they've had a great year. Where'd they get that from?
Because they're already campaigning, Kev. That's it.
Good luck with that. How do you think their campaign's going?
As well as the actual tenure itself.
Yes, exactly.
They're literally already petrified. They already know when Reform are at 47% in my area, you know you're in trouble.
Yeah.
I'm in Jonathan Reynolds' seat next door to Angela Rayner's
the pretend solicitor. How good.
The fake. So they're basically all compulsive liars. They all think we're as thick as they are.
They do. They think we're stupid. They think we're buying this claptrap they're trying to feed us. And we're not, are we, Matt?
And they deny the inevitable, Kev, which is coming up on them day by day. And in a way, I want them to string the term out as long as possible. Then the disappointment will be even worse on the day. It will be like the day we left the EU, when they were all like clinical depression for about 3 years afterwards.
Yeah. Well, Shabana Mahmood, stop at nothing to solve the migrant crisis. 895 came across on Saturday. 403 came across yesterday. She's been Home Secretary since September. early September, so best part of a month, I think. And the migrant crisis has got much worse under her. She shows no signs of solving this migrant crisis whatsoever, nor does this government, nor do they show any signs of solving any more of our national crises. We're going to hell in a handcart, and it's their fault.
My view is they'll just keep saying that while in the background they'll be making it worse. What got me was that Shabana Mahmood's language. We all know, like you mentioned, the 70s earlier on for Kevin.
Yeah.
She's given us the language of the 70s with the pea bashers, but yet she failed to mention anything about the grooming gangs in her own community.
Yeah.
All the bad people in Britain are all white, but she forgot about the rapists in her own community.
I mean, I agree, Matt, and the thing is, you know, with this labelling us all racist, Reform's racist, Nigel Farage racist, all these people who are worried about the migrant crisis, racist, immoral. They're just showing their desperation. They're trying to demonise their political opponents, those with whom they disagree, and it just comes across as pathetic desperation. And the people are beyond this. We all got called far right last summer by the Prime Minister because we were worried about the migrant crisis. Now we're still worried about the migrant crisis. He's ditched far right, is now calling us racists. It's pathetic. These are your voters, Starmer. Why are you having a go at us?
Because that's all they've got, Kev. They've got no policies. They've got no ideas. They've got no talent. All they've done for 14 years is sit in rooms calling the Conservatives names.
Yeah, I know. That's exactly it. That's exactly what they're. Racists, fascists, Nazis. You know, it's pathetic. It's just pathetic, and it's not sticking. We've had enough of it. If anything, I think this will be a very good week for Reform UK. In fact, every single day with this pathetically incompetent Labour administration is a good day for Reform. The worse they get, the more popular Reform gets. So another own goal from our fabulous Prime Minister. Matt, always good to talk to you, mate. Got to move on, though. That's Matt from Cheshire. Let's go to break now. When we come back, we'll speak to the great Tarquin in London. That next. Stay tuned.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
It's not from 10, it's from 11. Petrosins comes on at 11 p.m. And straight after the 10 o'clock news, it's Harry Cole Saves the West, our news show. And Harry will be coming to you live from Washington, where it's all been going on today with that big press conference at the White House between Donald Trump and, of course, the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu about a potential peace deal in Gaza. They say it's a done deal. I'll believe it when I see it. We've been told this many times. I hope it's true. Of course I hope it's true. But let's watch this space, eh? But Harry, coming to you live from Washington with Harry Cole Saves the West after the 10 o'clock news. Let's listen to a WhatsApp voice note. Pete on Keir Starmer.
The only true racists out there are Starmer and his party, because look at it so far. Anti-Semitism, racism towards our own people, they are the worst of the worst, and all they can do is typical. When it comes to it, the left, when they've got no more answers, they pull the race card on everybody else, don't they? Disgraceful, disgusting. He needs to resign.
I agree, Pete. Let's listen to one more. It's the last one. So this is Steve on first cousin marriages.
Evening, Kev. So apparently first cousin marriage is going to be all right because it's popular in sub-Saharan and some countries. Well, guess what? It's pretty popular in other countries to fly your nation's flag. So why is that not allowed here then, or being approved of? The world's gone mad, as you say, mate.
It has, Steve. It has, Steve. You make some good points there. I love that MP going, well, it's very popular in sub-Saharan Africa and the Middle East, first cousin marriage. So you go, oh, well, why didn't you say if it's popular in sub-Saharan Africa, let's do it. Unbelievable. Here's a text from Paul. Labour will be unable to carry out any of their anti-immigration policies. Reform will. The difference will be that reform will change the laws to prevent our judiciary from intervening. Yeah, exactly right. Exactly right. Yeah, we got this. You know, these tribunal judges, they're just lefties who keep making decisions that are not in the British public's interest or in migrants' interest. Oh, this paedophile can stay because if he goes back to Syria, he'll be persecuted. Don't really care all that much, to be honest with you. I just want a decision that might protect or keep British children safe. How about that? Unbelievable. International law, isn't it? International law, ECHR. Right to a family life. If you're a paedophile who's just done 5 years in jail, you don't have a right to anything, if you ask me. Let's go back to the phones. We've finished our WhatsApp voice notes. Can we talk to Brad in Kent? Hello, Brad.
Hello, Kev. Good evening, mate. How are you doing?
I'm all right. A new caller, I believe. Good. Welcome to the show. What would you like to...
I love the show. I love the show.
Thank you. Thank you.
I just wanted to make a point about Shabana Mahmood saying that she's willing to do anything.
She's not, Brad. She's not. But go on.
Really, why doesn't she send in the military then? She's willing to do anything to close to.
Yeah, exactly. Send the Navy, turn the boats round, or if you must let them get to Britain, just detain and deport. You just crossed the channel illegally, you can't stay. And by the way, you can't stay in a 4-star hotel. You can't have free food. You can't have free doctors, free dentists, free lawyers to fight your case to stay. You can't have any of that. That would be doing something. But she is going to carry on with all of that madness, Brad.
Absolutely. Anyway, keep up the good work, Kev.
Brad, call in any time. It's good to meet you. Call in any time. Brad from Kent. And now it's time for Tarquin in London. Hi, Tark.
If there were any justice in this world, Kevin O'Sullivan would win a Sony Award for professional integrity and truth in his broadcasting. And when we win this, you're all invited, you, Kevin, Mike, Julia, to Tarquin Towers, and you have won a Tarky Award. Even if Sony don't give you one, I will, because you are the great, and your unrelenting commitment to this cause, Kevin. On a serious
it's
note,
breathtaking, isn't it? It's breathtaking. I'll get a Tarky Award. Yeah. I don't suppose I'll ever get a Sony Award.
Tarky from me.
Yes, all right, I look forward to my Tarky Award. What should we talk about? ID cards.
Seriously, two quick points. Yeah. Firstly, I'd like to think, I always try and think of the inverse as you do, because we're very clever. This is the thing about us. We're clever and they're thick as PSH1T, aren't they? So we're always going to beat them, these Fabian snotheads. So Yeah, that's a technical term, by the way. And so what it is, the longer the Starminator and his gang, the Blairites and the multiverse kleptocrats continue with their pathetically failing strategy, the more that they are not just going to end their chances ever of being voted back into office ever again, Kevin. As you quite agree, I think, they will actually existentially never exist again as a political fighting force. They will disappear back to the margins of their Fabian Wolf in sheep's clothing non-entity.
They're doing themselves a lot of self-harming, aren't they? They really are. And with the Prime Minister and all of his acolytes falling into line behind him, Shabana Mahmood going on about the same kind of stuff, so was Rachel Reeves, calling us all racists, calling millions of people around the country racists because they're concerned about the migrant crisis. Quite why Keir Starmer and Labour think that is good for them is a mystery to me. Can you work it out, Tarquin?
As one of your callers a moment ago quite rightly said, it's all they've got left. It's the only bullet they've got left in their box. That's the only one that's the only one they ever really had. I think it actually is in the Communist Manifesto Marxist playbook to defile everyone as being racist of the opposite, because you have to argue with them then. It's just
they use the term racist. You're a racist. That's racist. That's what you just said, in order to slap down intelligent debate. Oh, you can't say that's racist.
Kev, one final quick point for tonight.
Yeah.
Once we win, and we will win big, I think we then have to get the forensic auditors out to actually go through the civil service like a fine-tooth comb, drain the swamp, root out all of these Fabian communists inside the civil service. Otherwise, Nigel or anyone's job is going to be really difficult. We need to do that with this civil service because they are just as woke.
We got also the judiciary as well, the civil service. We have to this nation. This dysfunctioning nation needs to be recalibrated on a massive scale.
Recalibrate. What a brilliant word. Brilliant word.
Well, that's exactly what needs to happen, and it's not going to happen under this. The great recalibration. That leaves something to be desired in terms of a snappy slogan, but that is what we need. Tarquin, I look forward to my Tarky Award, and it's always great to hear from you, mate. Thank you very much for another excellent call. Tarquin in London. We're coming towards the end of the show. I'll read a couple more messages here. This is from Nick in Who in Kent. Is there a place called Who? H-O-O? Sam, our technical operator, is saying there is. Anyway, this is Nick from Who? H-O. Why can't we have a new definition of leave to remain instead of unconditional leave to remain? Why not have conditional leave to remain? That exactly sums it up. We need to have conditional leave to remain, not unconditional. That brings us to the end of tonight's show. And in theory, we should be going over to America, but watch this space. I may be back, I may not be. If not, I'll see you tomorrow.
The simple truth is that Keir Starmer is desperately trying to regain some credibility when it comes to patriotism. And frankly, I don't think anybody is buying it. This is a party that mocks the St George's flag that people are flying from their cars and homes. Keir Starmer himself described all immigration legislation as racist. So he chucks that word around